It's been a minute, but welcome back to Puck on the Parkway. It's a short, abridged episode because it's still preseason hockey. It's not October yet, but we are getting there, and that's why we decided we might as well do one more update before the season gets going. Maybe a couple more, but alas, we have got to get into this really quickly. We've got a short episode for you today. It's James Burley and Daniel Rebane. We're going to go right into training camp because not only is Vitek Vanacek handing out friendship bracelets to all the new guys, but they've already hopped onto the ice and they've looked pretty good doing it. We had the prospects coming in, the rookies, the development camp has come and gone, and now the NHLers are back and the season is just around the corner. And it's an exciting time to be a New Jersey Devils fan, right, Daniel?
Oh my God. I've been waiting for hockey to come back so bad. I mean, me and you, we cover the Red Bulls and they've been bad this year. So we're
Oh God.
we're just we're just trying to get the hockey season so we can actually watch some winning games. And only 2 days in the training camp, but we've heard a lot of good things coming out of this camp. So I can't wait to get started.
Yeah, it's all good things coming out of New Jersey now, at least for the Devils. You didn't have to bring up the Red Bulls, but you did. But we're gonna just move past that. Some teams know how to score goals, and the New Jersey
Mm.
Devils certainly know how to score goals. We look at the forward core and specifically the groups A, B, and C that they put together have got some firepower at the top, not only because the Devils have some great forwards these days, but because of the specific pairings they brought together. The ones that stuck out to us, obviously, were Nico Hischier, Timo Meyer, and Alex Holtz, who has yet to break through at the NHL level. And if he could, that could be a tasty group of three. Then you've got Jack Hughes, Tyler Toffoli, and Jesper Bratt, all proven at the NHL level, but those three have never played together before because Tyler Toffoli's only just arrived in New Jersey. So where do you want to start first? Would you rather talk with Nico or Jack?
Well, let's talk about the Nico line because there's an interesting player on that line. You look at Alexander Holtz and top 10 pick, hasn't been able to take that step. And now first day of camp, they're putting him right in the top six, like we've been asking. So now it's up to him to take to take that job. And through 2 days, he's looked pretty good. So let's talk about him first.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what Alex Holtz can do this year. This is arguably a make or break year for him because he's been in limbo the past couple seasons where he's been featured at the NHL level, really hasn't looked like he fits in, can't really keep up with the speed of play specifically. But he's got the tools to be a sniper in the NHL, has got the tools to be a 20 plus goal scorer. And the idea was put him around the top six guys, give him top 6 minutes, those chances will come to him and he'll bury them. That really wasn't the case the last couple years when he was tried out with the big boys in Jersey, but in the AHL, he's been killing it and consistently at that. So to see him get that time and really hit the ground running, it says that not only is he that good of a player like he's been built up to be, but he is really living up to his potential and playing with the right mindset right now. So I'm excited to see what he can do. But I do still have my doubts because we've seen it the past couple of years. They've tried him with the top six and bottom six, and either way, it hasn't been super successful, even on the power play as well. So that's where I want to see him really have some impact is on special teams. If he can do what we expect him to do with that extra space, I think that's going to give him the confidence to maybe be a regular in the lineup coming through 2023, 2024.
Well, it is going to be interesting because all the talk has been he's not fast enough. He can't do it at the NHL speed. So that's what he's been working on. He consistently works with Jesper Bratt in the offseason, his skating coach and all that. So we see what Jesper Bratt has turned into. Maybe he can take some pointers over there. And also, we're expecting Nico Hischier to be number one center basically defensively. So he's going to be going up against the top lines of other teams this year. So if Alexander Holtz is on that line, I mean, he's actually got to take that next step because if not, like he's definitely going to get sent down again.
Well, I don't think it would be confirmed to say that he's going to play an 82 game season in the National Hockey League. I think at one point it is expected he's going to be taxied between the Comets of Utica and the Devils of New Jersey. That's just part of the expectation. Let's shift over to Jack Hughes' line. Playing with Jesper Bratt, we saw the two of them paired together very frequently. Oftentimes, the third forward on that line was Eric Halla, who provided a lot more of the defensive cover and some help in the faceoff circle with Jack Hughes. And with Hughes and Bratt, who play very similarly, very high energy, high skating, high creativity. It's good to have a little bit more of a grounded player in that. And Tyler Toffoli, while a strong two-way player, is also equaled Jesper Bratt in points last year, was practically a point per game, I believe at 73 exactly. So to see Tyler Toffoli join this line, boosts everything moving forward. But I think they could be a little bit vulnerable. Do you see it the same way?
Well, looking at this line, this is definitely going to be the offense line. Obviously, if you were listening to the 32 Thoughts podcast over the summer, Elliot Freeman had on Jesper Bratt and Jack Hughes at different points in the season. And they were asked about each other on each podcast, and they had nothing but glowing things to say. They love playing with each other. So I do expect them to play with each other. Now you add Tyler Toffoli in there, and he's the sniper on the line. Now you have two playmakers feeding Tyler Toffoli the puck. I don't know, man. Sky's the limit for that. Maybe defensively there'll be a little bit of a liability, but you know what? If they're all three of them putting up 80 points plus, I'm fine with it.
And you know what? The best defense is if you spend the entire time holding the puck in your offensive zone.
Exactly.
So I do think there are some things to point out that could potentially be exposed, but the weaknesses are only as strong as how they are in the attack. And that team is that line is, excuse me, is going to be electric when they get the puck in the offensive zone. And they did it with Eric Halla, who at many times was criticized, I would say, earlier in the season last year for holding that line back, for holding Jack back from scoring more points. And there may have been a glimmer of truth to that, but they were still so impressive and so effective that I can't have a single bad thing to say about them. That is a group that you'd want to keep together for sure. And the offensive upside is just remarkable. If we can shift now to what will likely be the third line going into the year with Andre Palat, Dawson Mercer, and Eric Halla. Mercer kind of in a bit of an interesting situation because I'm sure the talks between him and Tom Fitzgerald on a contract, I believe at the end of 2024 is when he's up for renewal. I believe the talks have stalled there, probably because Mercer's camp is expecting a pretty big increase in value for him moving forward, and for good reason. He's a stud and he's only getting better. But across the board, that line is solid and consistent, with the exception of Andre Palat, who was injured for a lot of last season and who really didn't get going as a Devil until the playoffs. But Eric Halla, the same way, was remarkable in the playoffs. So was Dawson Mercer, but Mercer had a terrific year with 27 goals. I want to talk about him first. Is he going to go on continue his upward trajectory as a New Jersey Devil this year?
I think
say
so.
yes.
Yeah, I think so too. Obviously the past 2 years, his first 2 years in the NHL, he's played all 82 games in each season. Now,
That's
that
so cool.
that is not
That's hard to do, man.
That is one of the hardest things to do, is to play an 82 game season, and he's done it in his first first two seasons. So I obviously you can't project health. So, but on points per game, I mean, if he's playing with Palat, who you definitely think plays better this year, obviously gets a full training camp once again. He's not injured. He's fully healthy. And you play with Halla, who he had some success with last year. Obviously, he's not going to be playing with Nico from the start. That's what it looks like. He'll be on the third line. But if he's playing consistently with those two, I guarantee you they'll get chemistry and they'll create points, because that's a solid third line. So them going up against other third lines in the NHL, I'm expecting big things out of that line.
The thing I want to extract about lines 2 and 3 is that the balance. We noticed that there was perhaps an imbalance in line 2 in terms of defense that Eric Halla addressed last year. But I look at line 3, that's just about as balanced as any line can get. You've got speed and power from Dawson Mercer. You've got playmaking ability from Palat, and you've got scrappiness and goal scoring from Eric Halla. You've got just about every base of the game covered. And I think that line is going to surprise a lot of people, especially late in games. And that's going to do work on other teams' bottom 6. Mm-hmm. Look at the first line, Timo, Nico, the Swiss brothers. You have to pair them together. They're going to be dynamic. But then Alex Holtz could be the extra sniper on that line that could really start turning a lot of those chances, a lot of those posts, a lot of those, late shots where the goalie was able to slide over, because we see all these cross crease passes the Devils are able to play with their extra speed. Maybe Alex Holtz is the final piece of the puzzle where some of those chances turn into goals. But that brings us to the fourth line, who was dynamic in the playoffs at the end of last year and really caught a lot of people's attention. While Nathan Bashford wasn't drawn into any of these lineups, you have to imagine his name is going to be drawn back into the team eventually. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but when he was in the lineup last year, the team was a lot more successful with him than they were without. Yep. No matter what you have an opinion about him, I personally think very highly of guys like Nathan Bastian, especially on this Devils team that plays with so much speed that doesn't have very many other guys like him. But this fourth line, as it is now, it looks like it's going to be Michael McLeod in the center, Curtis Lazar, and Tomas Nosek, who just arrived this offseason, on the wings. And that's especially good because Curtis Lazar also strong in the faceoff circle, also super strong. Immediately when he arrived in New Jersey, led the team in hits just through the trade. So he's a super valuable player to have on the team and have in that fourth line role, even without Bastian, who I imagine will play a number of games this season for obvious reasons. So I look at this line and I think this is a balanced fourth line that you really can't say anything bad about.
The funny thing is, I think this line, it's not just 3 players, it's 4 players. There's going to be 4 players interchanging throughout the season. Nosek, McLeod, Bastian, Lazar. They're all going to be in and out of the lineup because you know what? Hockey's a grueling game, and especially for fourth liners. They're tasked with going the forecheck, throwing your body around. There's going to be some injuries. There's going to be some nagging injuries that you're going to have to get some rest. And that's good that we got Nosek because, one, he's a left-handed player, so we didn't have many left-handed players on that bottom line. All of them are righties. So it's gonna be fun because Nosek has experience with Lazar. They love playing with each other, and McLeod loves playing with Bastian. So you put those 4 guys together, I think our bottom 6 is going to be super solid, very underrated, I think, going into the season.
So that kind of speaks back to what Tom Fitzgerald wanted to say. He didn't want to build a good top 6. He wanted to build a good top 9. And I think there's a pretty big disconnect in quality, especially an offensive quality, when you look at the third line of the Devils to the fourth line. So I think arguably mission accomplished in forming one of the best top 9s in the National Hockey League. From Nico's line down to Eric Halla's line, there is so much talent, so much goal scoring prowess, so much chance creation prowess. And I have a lot to look forward to as a beat reporter for this team, sitting up in the all the way up in the nosebleeds, watching these guys from the heavens practically. But the speed and the skill is not lost from up there. I am so pumped to see these guys get going. And this fourth line, while it may not be as sparkly, it's still going to be super effective as it was down the stretch last year, especially because this line has speed too. And people don't underestimate this line for its, I will say, creativity, but it's creativity through gaining territory. This line, excuse me, I keep saying team, loves to stay behind the red line and loves to have the goaltender on a swivel. And that's how they scored so many goals on centering tries, even when it came from the wing. Devils Rangers game 7, Palat finds McLeod in the center, charging into the center, has the goalie switching directions. It's a tough way to play defense, but this is how they get it done. And now I think if you have one more thing to go in before I move on to some of the scratches, go ahead. Now's the time.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we've seen it the past couple of years. You don't win Stanley Cups with just the top 6. You need role players in the bottom 6 to step up, and we have those now. We get better with adding to Toffoli because now you put Mercer down in the third line. Mercer was a top 6 player, and he was really good as a top 6 player last year. Now you put him on the third line with Palat and Haula. That just makes the team even better. And now you bring in a Nosek for the fourth line, replacing Miles Wood. More consistency on that fourth line we would expect. I'm super excited to see what this whole team can do offensively.
Well, now we have to look at some guys who we imagine will feature in a Devils sweater at some point this year. Guys that will certainly be tasked between Utica and New Jersey. Headlined by Nolan Foote and Graham Clark, but also I want to highlight Chris Tierney. He was being paired as the center with them, signed again this year on a 2-way deal from the Senators. So there's all those guys have the potential to play in the NHL. You particularly want to highlight any single one of those because I've been very impressed with Graham Clark, and his play, not only from this summer, but obviously last year at the AHL.
Yeah, so there's 3 guys basically battling for like 1 or 2 spots from Utica last year. It's Alexander Holtz, who's getting his opportunity in the top 6, and then Graham Clark and Nolan Foote, they're battling for bottom 6 role. Now it's gonna be difficult because one, I mean, this team's really good. So you as a player trying to make this team, you got to go snatch the role from one of these veterans. And that's going to be tough. We'll see if any of them can do it. But an even bigger issue is Nolan Foote is not waivers eligible anymore. So if you send him down, he can be claimed by another team. So that's going to be an interesting thought from Fitzgerald, because that might be an option to keep up in the NHL just so you don't lose him, because Holtz and Graham Clark are still waiver eligible. They can go through to Utica, no problem. So we'll see how these preseason games come along with Nolan Foote, Graham Clark, and Alexander Holtz. But that's going to be a big battle from those three.
So before we move on to the defensemen, assuming that for opening day, Lindy Ruff selects 14 forwards, 12 dressed and 2 scratched. Those 12 presumably will be Heishier, Timo Meyer, Holtz, Bratt, Hughes, Toffoli, Nosek, McLeod, Lazar, Palat, Paula, and Mercer. Which 2 players do you bring on as the scratches? I think one you can pencil in as Nathan Bastian, assuming he doesn't get into the 12, and then obviously I think maybe Holtz would be the player he'd replace in that 12. So I think between Foote, Tierney, and Clark, I lean towards Clark as the 14th for opening day.
I probably would just go with Foote just because you kind of still want Graham Clark to be playing games. So it's not bad going down to Utica, playing first line, getting all the roles that you
A
can.
strong AHL team too.
Yes, a strong AHL team. So him getting power play, penalty kill. He was getting penalty kill last year too. So go get your playing time. And then once an injury happens, you're gonna get called right back up. Nolan Foote, I'd like to see him in an NHL because when I've seen him play games, he's looked pretty good. So if he shows good, like obviously he has to show that he's worthy of getting the NHL spot. But if he does show that, I think just him not being able to go through waivers probably gives him the edge.
And it could come down to a political decision in the end there. But either way, I think the Devils will be in good position with their forwards. Briefly, to talk about the defense, it's mostly the same from last year with a like-for-like change in Colin Miller coming into that pairing with Kevin Ball where Damon Severson was. But of course, Luke Hughes is out. They imagine it's something just precautionary. He took place in a morning skate, didn't play with the team through the groups, and that leaves John Marino without a partner. But it's Jonas Siegenthaler and Dougie Hamilton naturally, and they've got Simon Nemec with Witherspoon, who you think is probably going to be the top pair in the AHL. And then they've got Cal Foote paired with Brendan Smith, who you imagine is going to be that 7th D, where he was super reliable really for most of last year. He's not the most polished defenseman tactically and with the puck on his stick, but he certainly did a job, especially in the playoffs too, when they had to taxi between players and when even on his opposite wing as a defenseman, I thought he was good left-handed on the right slot. So I think Brendan Smith, very valuable player. You have to have him in that roster, even if he isn't going to be a regular great 7th D to have. I think that this defense core is pretty much set for the season moving forward. The only thing that could change it is if Nemec takes a big jump and is ready for the NHL. But I'm firmly in the camp that you don't have to rush that.
No, I mean he's looked really good through these first 2 games. I'm not saying he should get sent down, but I mean, even if he has like a perfect training camp, I think they still will send him down just to be like, you know what, we know you're good enough, but they don't have a spot just right yet. And you know what, playing third line minutes in the NHL, getting only like 12 minutes a game compared to you're probably going to get 25 minutes on a first pair of Utica. Go work on your craft some more. He's still only 19 years old. Like we forget how young he is. Like him and Luke Hughes are ridiculously young. They're 19, 20, almost 20 years old. Like these are kids. So let them continue. I'd rather let him overcook in the AHL than put him in the NHL and he's not ready for it. Even if he has a great training camp, let him go down there, get a couple games. And then if you have an injury, bang, called up. He's the first one called up. So I like the depth on this D. You see some of these names that we brought in this offseason that will be playing in Utica. I mean, you have 2 prospects, Tobias Wieland and Daniel Mazul. Both of them are going to be critical players on that D core in the AHL. Utica might roll some eyes this year. They're looking good. So I might have to go up there for a game or 2 this year. So I usually get up there with my parents. So it's gonna be fun seeing them this year.
I couldn't agree more with you about Nemec just because, yeah, you'd rather him overcook than undercook and just not be prepared at this level. Plus, I'm strongly believe that, God forbid, one of Hamilton, Marino, or Miller goes down, one of your right-handed guys, Simonevich could just slot right in and do a job at the NHL level, do it for 12, 15, 16 minutes a game, and I think he would probably perform very, very well. His speed and his ability on the puck is it rivals some of the Devils defensemen already, such as Luke Hughes, which is absolutely spectacular. Across the board, though, we know what we're going to get with Siegenthaler and Hamilton. Kevin Ball, I think, is primed to continue that upward trajectory as well as a stable force. I use the word stable and consistent with him more than just about any other New Jersey Devil because that's just the way he plays. You know what you're going to get. And he's so reliable back there and so strong. I really hope that if there's one thing he can unlock, it's his ability to tap into his size just a bit more. We saw it in the playoffs last year. I want to see it for 82 games this year. And then Colin Miller coming in, who's a very reliable, very organized
Stable.
veteran defenseman who
Yeah.
I think is arguably better in defense than Damon Severson was. I think maybe you lose a lot of that stretch passing ability and some of that comfort and confidence on the puck and the breakout, which the Devils really do rely on with their speed on the wings. They love to stretch the ice early with their defensive lead passing. I think they're going to lose that without Severson, but I really love what Miller can bring to this decor as well. I think that's the only line really where we're going to have a lot to learn. And when Luke Hughes comes back, we're going to see just how well he and Marino can gel in the long term. But I'm not too worried about that on paper at all.
Yeah, no, Luke's dealing with a minor injury. Yeah, let him rest. That's why he didn't play in the Prospects Challenge camp. And you know what? He doesn't need to play there. Nemec didn't need to play there either, but he wanted to get some game time under his legs. But I really can't. I can't wait till the season starts. I want to see Luke Hughes and John Marino so bad. I think that's our actual number one pair. Like Hamilton
Yeah.
and Siegenthaler, they've been together for a while now, but I think Luke Hughes, John Marino, that's going to be our number one pair going forward.
And I think a lot of last year, our number one pair was Marino and Graves. And I think Graves maybe tailed off a little bit in the playoffs and towards the end of last season, but he was a trooper all year long. I'm going to miss Ryan Graves a lot, not only because he actually lived in my hometown and I ran into him at a CVS once, but because he's also was a great two-way defenseman and it was huge in a lot of big moments throughout the year. That goal line clearance against the Rangers, especially, sticks out to me. I think now we've got to talk about goaltenders, and this is arguably the most impactful, most interesting, because we have a starter, but he's never been trusted as a starter full time until last year, and he killed it. And I have reason to believe he could kill it again this year. But now we got this other young guy, and I'm not going to use names because I like building up the suspense. We have this other guy who's super, super young who did so well in the playoffs last year, but we're not even sure if he's ready for a full NHL season to perform in that workload. Well, I certainly believe he is, but others who actually make the decisions may not. Of course, I'm talking about Vitek Vanacek and Akira Schmid. And I know some worry about the goaltending situation. I don't. I think Vitek Vanacek is going to pick up right where he left off in the regular season last year with 33 wins, and he's going to continue climbing up the Devils goaltending charts. And I think Akira Schmid is going to have a lot of games in the NHL. I think he's going to play between 25 and 30 regular season games this year, hopefully maybe even a few more. And I think he's going to get a lot of wins. He's going to be super stable. And we're going to see a lot more of what we saw, that super embracing the Zen that we saw in the playoffs last year when he traveled into Madison Square Garden and shut those blue shirts up. I can't wait for more moments like that from Schmido.
Yeah, so I mean, goalie situation this year is a bit more clear. We kind of know who's going to be in net for us this year. Last year Vitek was a bit of a mystery. Backup we had Jonathan Bernier. Kind of there was cloud up in the air with it. Now VV is good. He's we're hoping that he can play maybe like 55 games and have a solid season. Akira Schmid, on the other hand, is going to be still a rookie, I believe, right? I think, is he still a rookie? Is he still
Yeah,
a
I don't
rookie?
think he's played 25 games yet.
Yeah, so this is going to be his first full season in the NHL if he makes the team, which, there's other goalies in the system now that might beat him out. Maybe they say go back down for a bit, but we expect that Akira is going to be there. So if we can get a solid 82 game season out of two goalies, which probably won't happen, we'll have third or fourth goalie up at specific times in the season when there's injuries. But I think goalie is going to be where we're going to have to take another step. If we want to be serious cup contenders, we're going to need Vitek to be one of a top 10 goalie. We're going to need Akira Schmidt to continue on what he was doing in the Rangers series, and maybe get some more stamina in the tank now that he's going to be a full-time NHL goalie. So I'm interested to see how these two goalies play this season.
Yeah, I don't love the language that the Devils are a goaltender away from a Stanley Cup, because I do think that this goaltending tandem can bring about a Stanley Cup. I think it would have to take a bit, maybe a bigger charge than you would expect. But I look at the 2023 Stanley Cup champions and who they had in goal. It was Aiden Hill. So the team in front of the goaltender matters, I think, perhaps a bit more than who that number one goaltender is. And the Devils have a good option between Vanacek and Schmidt. I think the playoffs proved that last year, that when Vanacek isn't on his game, which things can open up when he's not on his game, you have a good, reliable secondary option in Akira Schmidt. And I think with a couple years of growth, we could start looking at that the other way, saying Akira Schmidt is the long-term goalie for the New Jersey Devils. And it's not the first time the Devils have tried to look internally at a young, blossoming goaltender and say that this is the answer to the future. It's happened probably, I would say, twice really in the post Martin Brodeur era with Keith Kincaid and Mackenzie Blackwood. Kincaid probably of the older choice. He was firmly in his prime at that point, but the the phenomenon remains the same, because I firmly believe that while the Devils could have gone out and gotten a Connor Hellebuck and made it all about achieving something this year on a short-term contract for a lot of money for a guy like Connor Hellebuck, I'd rather have the flexibility in goal that they have now. And I think having two reliable goaltenders, especially because these are two guys who fed off of each other last year, I think you give them a full season together and it can only get better. I think Vitek Vanacek is going to have another great season with 30 plus wins. And I think we're going to be talking about him as a top 10 goaltender in the league at a certain point next year.
All right, yeah, that's good. We can only hope that we can look at what Boston had last year and hopefully that's us in the regular season. Maybe not the playoffs. Maybe we get a bit more success than them in the playoffs with their goalies, but they had one of the best tandems in the league. Both of them were Vezina caliber goalies in their own right. So hopefully we can get something like that this year. We don't have to worry about outside noise about, oh, the Devils need to go trade for Hellebuck. Oh, the Devils need to go trade for Saros. Let's hope this is the year that the two goalies take charge, take their roles, and hopefully it leads us to the promised land.
I'm not saying it's going to be this year, but I do believe that these two goaltenders and this team in front of them can reach a Stanley Cup final and can win it. Do you think that Vitek Vanacek can be a Stanley Cup winning starting goaltender?
I mean, we saw Aiden Hill do it last year, so I'll say anybody could be a starting goaltender. So
there you go.
do I think he's gonna be the guy for the Devils that brings it there? Maybe not. I think maybe Akira would be that guy, unless it's this year. If it's this year, then it's definitely Vitek. But if it's in a future year, I would say it's probably Akira.
But I agree with that in principle, but then I think back to last year. And if it were to be last year, we all would have thought it'd be V, but based on the way the playoffs went, it would have been Akira.
Yeah.
So I look, this is a luxury of riches. You know, you have two hot goaltenders that you can switch to the hot hand. And I think that a lot of teams, a lot of coaches don't necessarily like that. I think having heard from Lindy Ruff directly over the last year, he appreciates having two goaltenders to pick from, but he very much values strength in consistency, and which is why Vitek Vanacek had so many consecutive starts in a row. It's why the year prior, Nico Dawes had so many consecutive starts in a row when the team went through that goaltending crisis, because even though he was, I believe, 20 at the time, maybe 19, he was the only goaltender who was consistently making those saves and getting wins in a team that was really struggling to just get out of their own D zone, let alone win a hockey game. So, I mean, I'm glad that part of Devils lore is over, at least for the moment. But we learn a lot about the way Lindy Ruff likes to coach his team, like to select his players in those moments, and I think some of those trends will continue into what is looking like is going to be a successful 2023-2024, which brings us to oh no, we have to mention this. I'm so sorry. We're talking about goaltenders. We haven't even mentioned the newest New Jersey Devil. I actually saw a great photo of him photoshopped into a Devils jersey for the first time. It's Keith Kincaid.
Oh
It's back.
wow. Oh, have we seen? I don't think I've seen this. I need to go look this up. I don't think I've seen him in
Yeah.
a Devils jersey before.
Never once. I think most famous for that 2018 playoff run where he actually took the starting job away from Corey Schneider, missed some injuries and inconsistency, and then helped bring the Devils to the playoffs during Taylor Hall's spectacular season. Didn't really go according to plan. He started in the playoffs and then got benched for Corey Schneider, and the Devils won Game 3 without him, and never went back to him. And then his Devils future kind of petered off after that, but he's back on a two-way contract with the Chicago Wolves, the
I was
independent
gonna bring that
AHL
up.
team, which makes he's not going to be playing for the Utica Comets. So
Nope.
we can't even say like we're going to see him back in upstate New York, but no, that's not even how that works. He's going to be in Chicago, I imagine, for most of the season, but it's going to be kind of funny to have Keith Kincaid back around. Hopefully, he unblocks me and half of the all the other NJ Devils fans off Instagram. I don't know what I did to do that. I'd never talked to the guy. I just like probably hyped him up, if anything. But I'm happy to see Keith Kincaid back in Jersey. Technically,
It'd be good to see him once or twice this season. My mom actually has a Keith Kincaid jersey, and of course, the year that she
really,
got it, the year that she got it, they let him go, so she can dust it off and bring it out.
I don't know if I can support the purchase of a Keith Kincaid jersey
I
as much as I liked the guy at a certain point. That never would have
Yeah, I
happened in
would
my
have.
house.
Yeah, she wanted it. My dad was like, "Yep, there, I got you. Whatever, mom."
Uh, oh well, he had a moment. He had a
Yeah,
moment. I
it
think the
was
moment's
good.
passed, but if he can rekindle some of that flame, that'd be really cool.
Yep.
I'd be here for it. I'd be here for it.
Hey,
But
as long as he's getting us wins.
hey, anyway to get a win. Moving on though, unfortunately, can't talk about Keith Kincaid all day. Lindy Ruff had a bit of an interesting contract option that I actually didn't know about that
Nobody
you
knew
brought to
about
my
this.
attention.
Yeah, yesterday, Ryan Novozinski of NJ.com just bombed us on Twitter. Just said, here, I'll just read the whole tweet. I'm told that Ruff had an option year still left on his deal, which is why he's coaching now. But he and Devils GM Tom Fitzgerald are working out a longer deal currently. So they're still working out maybe a contract extension, but Lindy Ruff is gonna be here one more year at least with an option year that nobody knew about apparently. So interesting that he had that and nobody wanted to bring that up. So Lindy Ruff is back for at least one more year and probably multiple years after this.
It's a strange development that was not known prior to yesterday.
Yeah.
But I think it's not a shock that the option was taken. I think it opens up a bigger discussion though. If this option year hadn't been chosen until this offseason, until after the Devil season concluded, then was Andrew Brunette ever truly considered for the position? And was the whole notion of him being an associate head coach to eventually graduate to the head coaching position, Lindy Ruff was meant to be the transitional coach. This kind of makes me think maybe there was some validity to that. I'm not sure. Based on the players' reactions to Lindy and the way the team talks about Lindy, they're very much in favor of him being the coach. They very much like playing for him.
Yep.
But this development particularly makes me think that maybe there was a way for Andrew Brunette to get his foot in the door as the head coach of this team.
Yeah, there probably was. If we'll say if the Devils didn't show anything last year, probably they're like, yeah, Lindy, thanks, but we're gonna go a different direction. But I mean, look, he took us to a second place finish in the division. He won us around, so I'm not mad at him. He's earned the year. Maybe let's play the whole year out and see if we give him an extension because we'll see if this is sustained success. Obviously, we all believe that we are this team now and we are a Stanley Cup contender every year
But the
going
entire
forward
league
now.
believes it now.
Yeah, but like we've only seen 1 year of it. So I need to see a second year. Just let's get through this year. Let's have some success. And if we do, I'm all for giving Lenny an extension.
And I think we're probably going to see that. I don't want to put my foot down. Don't want to say anything too quickly here, but I think everything's pointing in that direction. I think that's why this discussion has left off with working on a longer deal currently. I don't think it's going to go any other way, but I'm actually super psyched that it's Lindy Ruffs, particularly. I think making the change to Andrew Brunette, that wouldn't make sense at this point. The team has been clearly building towards something,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd like to keep the same voices in charge, at least for the moment. And I really like the way Lindy Ruff has had this team playing, especially through some of the ups and downs of last year, because there were downs last year. People forget
Oh
it
yeah.
wasn't all game 5 and game 7 shutouts. It was some fire Lindy. There was some beer thrown on the ice against the Maple Leafs. So there's a lot here that a lot of adversity, excuse me, that the Devils had to work through that I gave Lindy Ruff and the leaders of the team a lot of credit for taking care of. But this is going to bring us now to our next and perhaps final. Or no, we have two more things. So
Yeah.
excuse me for getting ahead of myself. But you are going to take the reins away because while we're going to shift the discussion away from the leaders of the team, we're going to talk about some of the young guys overseas who have started to impress. Who
Yes,
did you have in mind?
we're gonna start this new segment for each episode that we do. We'll bring up one prospect that we think is lighting it up, we should say. And early this season, Liga has already started up in Finland, and our recent second round pick has already hit the ground running. Just 18 years old, by the way. He still doesn't turn 19 until November. Lenni Hammenaho, hopefully I'm saying his name right. Second round pick for the Devils, already 4 goals in 5 games for, I believe, how you say his asset in Liga this year. So this is his second full season in Liga. Last year, 51 games, 9 goals, 12 assists for 21 points. Like that's a good rookie year for 18-year-old. Now him taking more of reins, getting more situated in his senior team. I mean, 4 goals in 5 games. That's pretty good for an 18-year-old in a men's league.
Yeah, and he was the guy that we first identified after the draft as not only because he was one of our earlier picks being in the second round, but he was a guy who probably could have gone earlier in the draft and that a lot of analysts had kind of singled out as a guy who could be very high upside as a goal scorer in the National Hockey League. So to see him one of the toughest leagues in Europe hit the ground running through, I believe he's got 6 games now and 9 points across all competitions at the international level. So that's
Yep.
an even better stat as well. So I've got to tip my cap here. I don't think there's a spot opened up in the lineup in New Jersey just yet, but I think the phone is going to start ringing in Utica to get this guy in North America pronto.
Yeah, he's definitely one to keep an eye out. His biggest thing has been his IQ, and some of the clips that you've seen from him getting goals this year is he sets up right in front of the net. He's right in the open space in front of the trapezoid, and I mean in front of the blue paint. He just finds that space, and we don't have many players that could do that for us right now. So
Not
if he
not in our top 9 that can do that.
exactly, so if he can continues to trend upwards and score goals in these dirty areas, he's got a decent shot to him too. So I'm liking what I see him from Lenny. So keep going in asset and Liga, and we got our eyes on you, kid.
I think give it maybe 1 or 2 years and we're going to see him pretty consistently in North America.
Yep.
Definitely at least one more year, but maybe two. I'll give him a little bit of a leash there. We've got time for one more little segment. We're each going to because we're still a little ways out of the season. It's always fun to have some predictions with no consequences because why would there be consequences? And I've kind of given a teaser to mine. I said earlier that Vitek Vanacek by the end of the season we're going to be looking at him as having had a top 10 campaign as a goaltender in the NHL. But I'm going to bump that. I think he's going to be at least a top 8 goaltender as a starter in the National Hockey League this season. And we're not going to have to see Akira Schmid stand on his head in the playoffs. But if he gets called upon, Akira Schmid is going to be super quick with that glove save once again. All day, Artemi, all day, Mika. Okay. It's going to come back to haunt you. But if not, Vitek is going to hold strong. I don't think he's going to get a lot of Vezina votes. Not going to be quite that good, but he's going to be super stable. And I'm anticipating he's going to have just as many, if not more, wins this season as well.
And we're gonna need that. If he can, if VV can be in top 8 goalie in the NHL, my God, I mean, that just unlocks so much. Like, we were already Stanley Cup contenders, but I think if Vitek Vanacek is a top 8 or closest to that, we might be favorites in the East to come out of the East and get to the Stanley Cup final. Because I mean, this team is so, like, on paper at least, right? We have to see it on the ice, but on paper, if you add a top 8 Vitek Vanacek to this already stacked roster with depth all up and down the lineup, I mean, sky's the limit for this team. This team could really win the Stanley Cup if Vitek Vanacek is that guy, and he's getting Vezina votes. So I pray your bold prediction comes right.
See, and I don't want to say that the Devils are an elite goaltender away from a Stanley Cup, because they can still do it without Vitek putting up the numbers I'm predicting him to put up. But if he does put up those numbers, it can give them such a big push and that much more comfort, because they're going to score goals. And if they can keep the puck out of the net and they're scoring goals, you don't lose hockey games that way. So I love this prospect. Maybe I'm getting a little bit wishful with my thinking here, but a lot about Vitek's game points to him not only taking another jump this season, but becoming more stable and more consistent, which is his entire mantra. He's had consistent numbers throughout his career, but if he can keep that going at a 60, 65 game pace, I'm not saying he needs to play that many games, but if he has that capability and he plays 55, I think 55 or 60, excuse me, I think the Devils really are going to have, I said luxury of riches before, but they're going to have a luxury of some gold riches if Vitek Vanacek can do that and Akira Schmid can be his partner in crime, which is, I think, even a light responsibility for a young goaltender like Akira. Daniel, if you have a big prediction, now's the time, and then we can go on, get the heck out of here.
All right, so my prediction is like a combination of two. I'm predicting 2 players on this Devils roster get 100 points this year. One is Jack Hughes. He'll get 125 plus with 50 goals.
What? 125.
Yep. And
wow.
And Jesper Bratt gets 100
because they're on the same line.
Yep.
Yeah. So how much of that is Tyler Toffoli scoring goals on that line?
I think
giving Jack the bump. That's the key.
That's going to be such a big attribute to him getting 100 points, let alone the 125. Obviously, these are bold predictions, so probably not going to come true. But I mean, if everything goes right, they stay healthy, and we expect them to do what we expect them to do, Jack Hughes is going to be one of the top 5 players in the NHL this season. I guarantee it. Like
is he
yes.
not already? Is he not already?
I mean, like, production wise.
Oh, production wise. Like, yes. So the numbers will support it too.
So he'll be up there with, obviously, Connor McDavid and Draisaitl. They're gonna get close to like 150, but he's gonna have similar points to like Austin Matthews and that type of tier player.
And Kachuk.
I truly believe if Jack Hughes plays 75 plus games this year, he could get 125 points.
Well, there you have it. So, Jack Hughes, 125. Just
MVP as well. I'll put that on there. MVP.
Yeah, I think that's certainly realistic too. Jack Hughes being in an MVP discussion. He was in that discussion last year, and I think he's going to be in those discussions for the rest of his time in New Jersey. But speaking of time in New Jersey, we've run out of our time. And I'm not even in New Jersey. I'm in New York right now. I'm across enemy lines. Don't tell nobody, but unfortunately, that is all the time we have. I forgot about that. And that's all the time we have for Puck on the Parkway this week. And thank you guys again for joining in. As I know it's been a little while, but we're going to be obviously more frequent with the episodes during the season and ahead of the season. But this has been a fun little check-in. We'll have some more information with you guys next time. Maybe Nick Guzman will come back and join us. But for Daniel Rebane and James Burley, I'm saying so long, and thank you guys for joining.
Peace.